we are entering into another session where we are discussing on the particular source of fund, which is retained earnings. We have already learned in introduction there are different sources of funds from where we can raise business finance. Now from this session onwards we will be learning about different sources of fund, and the first one we are going to learn is about retained earnings. You know what earnings is? Earnings is profit made by the business. So retained earnings is the earnings which is retained, which is kept back. We'll go in detail to the topic. Detailed earning or retained earning, when we are talking about retained earning, it is the portion of earnings, portion of profit which is retained in the business, for future use. So portion of profit reinvested into business. In other words, we can say portion of profit reinvested into business, or portion of earnings retained which is kept back in the business without distributing as dividend. We are keeping a portion of profit back in the business for future use. It can be for paying out some financial obligation or for purchase of some asset, whatever be. For some future use, a portion of profit is kept back in the business. That is what is meant by retained earnings. It is also known as plowing back of profits. We are pulling back the profit. And it is a source of internal financing. So from the working of the firm, from within the firm, we are getting that source of fund. So that is considered as an internal source of fund or self-financing. It's a source of self-financing. Business by itself is financing. And many factors have to be considered: net profit, dividend policy, age of organization. The profit which a company is making, the dividend policy, how much we are distributing. If we are distributing 50%, 50% is there for retained earnings. If we are distributing 75%, 25% only will be there for retained earnings. So dividend policy matters, and age of the organization, because on the basis of age of organization only profit increases and the people will positively respond to the organization. So age of organization is also very important. Now the merits. There are some merits for retained earnings. First one, it is a permanent source of fund. As long as business is earning profit, from that a portion can be invested into business, which business need not give it back to the shareholders immediately. As long as business is using it, it will be there in the business. So it is considered as a permanent source of business which can be used for a very longer time, as long as business is in requirement. Because a portion of profit which is reinvested in the business, it need not be given back to the shareholders as we are giving dividend, as we are taking debentures, nothing. It is a permanent source. It can be used for a very long time in the business as a source of finance. That is why it is called the permanent source of finance. No explicit cost. For raising this source of fund, we need not pay any interest, we need not pay any dividend. So it is not having any cost associated with that. Because it is from the profit which is made by the business, a portion is reinvested. So we need not pay any cost on that. With that, if profit is made, again a portion is only required to be given as dividend according to the dividend policy. So there is no explicit cost associated with this source of fund, that is retained earnings. Again, greater degree of operational freedom. As it is a source of internal financing, it is flexible to be used by the organization. Organization, according to its requirement, can apply this source of finance. According to its requirement, can use this source. There is no compulsion that it must be used only for this. for any purpose of the organization, any purpose of the business, it can be used. So freedom is there in using these funds and flexibility is there. Helps absorbing unexpected losses, another merit, because as we are keeping a portion of profit for future use, we may not use immediately, we may be keeping back it as a reserve in order to handle some unexpected events, unexpected losses come. So it is helping in balancing. If there is a loss happening, this reserve which we have kept, with this amount which we have kept back from the profit, acts as a cushion, to absorb this loss. So it is helping in absorbing unexpected loss, and towards the end we can say it leads to increase in market price of share, because using this internal source of finance, using this retained earnings, we can expand the business, we can introduce new machines, we can introduce technology. As a result of that, we can expect more profit to be there. When more profit is there, we will be able to give more dividend. As a result of that, there will be a positive trend in share prices, and it helps in increase in price of shares. So that is also another merit, leads to increase in the market price of the share. So those are the merits. Now there are some demerits also, some limitations also. One of the basic limitation is that if excess amount of profit is taken back as retained earnings, there can be a dissatisfaction, because every shareholder purchases share in order to get a better dividend. So dividend is paid out from the profit, and if from the profit majority is kept as retained earnings, that means that much less amount will be available for dividend. As a result of that, dividend will be less. It can create a kind of dissatisfaction for the shareholders. That can be a serious issue. People may not respond positively. It can disturb shareholders who are expecting some return regularly from the shares. So excess of plowing back can create dissatisfaction among shareholders. Another thing is that it is an uncertain source at times. At times means it can be a uncertain source when we cannot have a regular profit, when we can't have a continuous profit, when the profit, the earnings made by the organization is fluctuating, when we are not able to be sure that the earnings will be same or it will be growing, when it is going on fluctuating up and down, it will not be a wise idea to retain. So when it is fluctuating, it cannot be considered as a source of finance. It cannot be considered as a source of finance when it is fluctuating, when the profits are fluctuating. That is why I wrote at times, not every time. If it is showing a growing trend, we can, or if it is having a regular trend, we can retain. But when it is fluctuating, it is not wise to retain. And the third one is suboptimal use of funds. We are retaining a portion of amount for future use. We are expecting it to be used for something in future. So till that time, that retained earnings stay as idle money. It could have been used for some other purpose. So there is an opportunity cost associated with that. There is an opportunity cost associated with that. Many a times this is being ignored. We are retaining it, expecting it to be used for something in future. Many a times the opportunity cost is being ignored. It must have been used for something else which could have given us a return. Many a times that has been ignored. That is also a problem with retained earnings. So, we are talking about what is retained earnings, what are the benefits and what are its limitations.